It's like the difference between washing the dishes with your hand, then you get a dishwasher. Then you start to use that, and then one day when you have to go back to hand washing your dishes, it's not nearly as fun as you remember it being.
Right. I was just about to say, there's a time when people survive without running water, but
Right?
that's a little bit more severe.
That makes hand washing the dishes a lot tougher. Let me tell you, you have to use
right. Bringing down your dishes down to the river and beating them against a rock is not a very good idea.
No, it's not. Let me tell you.
Welcome to Disparate Worlds, where an irresistible force meets an immovable object. I'm Mox, and this is Sechari, comparing and contrasting the worlds of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen and the Ashes of Creation.
Yes, hello friends. Welcome to Disparate Worlds, episode 11. Now with nothing for me to say at this point.
Okay, episode's over.
Is it fair? There we go. Okay, we're done. Hey, what do you know? We have not made any tweaks to how we're doing things, so this is like the first episode in a while to do.
Well,
that,
you know,
so.
it's only been like 17 seconds since we recorded the last episode, so
Right. You're
I'm
not
not
supposed to tell them that. Talking shop here on the show.
I'm sorry, I'm pulling back the curtain.
Yes, and actually, it's a lot like what's it, the Wizard of Oz, where it's just this, little
A short
man
guy behind
there, pulling all the strings.
Yes.
Absolutely. That's how it works. Oh my goodness. Short episode, this one. We've had this kind of like a shotgun blast of 3 episodes that we're all putting out this week. It's been a hard week.
Think
starting.
both of the studios were conspiring against us to put all their stuff out at once.
Right, I know. And then we feel obligated to have to review it all, but hey.
Right. I guess we did it to ourselves.
Yeah. Well, so that's what's happening. It's the beginning of 2021. We had a creative director's letter from Stephen Sharif in the Ashes of Creation world. We covered that last episode in episode 10. Episode 11, of course, this episode, we're going to offer our insightful thoughts and analysis on CohhCarnage's playthrough of the evaluation build of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, which of course went live, not very long ago. So we've just had a lot of things to do, and we wanted to do all the news it's due. So
if you want insightful thoughts and comments, I'll go get Archangel 123 and he can.
Oh yeah, 223. Yes, yes, he's probably more insightful than we are. That's for sure. Well, we depend on his comments to carry the day for us. Yes, definitely. There is a lot to talk about, a lot going on right now, and so there's a lot in our episodes.
So the plan for this episode is to discuss our overall impressions of the episode, and then just go dig into the stuff that was said. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about the only real piece of news that came out of that stream, and that was right at the very end. Ben or Chris, I forget which it was, said that there's going to be some investor news out next week. I'm curious, what does that mean? Have they found a publisher? Do they have a big studio that's going to come in and co-develop with them? What is
there maybe a new angel investor? Right?
Yeah, I don't know. The angel investors, they usually hush about, because they're angel investors because they want to be silent partners, so to speak. But
maybe.
But them announcing investor news in advance is cool, and I'm excited for it.
Right.
And I just wish they why tease me? Why are you doing this to me, Ben? Do you not like me?
Right.
Ben, talk to me.
Yes, especially him. I'm just sitting here eating the popcorn, enjoying the show. Make him suffer, Ben.
Over the investor news.
Yeah, I mean, especially if it's good news, right? If they say, "Hey, guess what? We're going to have Pantheon out a year and a half before we originally estimated because we have the funds to do that." That is cool.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we want the good news, right?
Yeah,
we absolutely want the good news.
Right.
And why? They wouldn't chalk it up as an announcement.
If it was
it
bad
wasn't.
news, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
They
If
would
it was bad news, they'd be just shuttering the windows and closing the doors, like, you know. But it's not that. I think it's going to be something really cool, and the fact that they need to delay it, like, means it's going to be some sort of like big press deal in the development world anyway.
Or maybe they're kind of dotting the I's, crossing the T's in some kind
agreement, legal agreement.
Whatever it happens to be, right? They're wrapping it up. I mean, so it's good. I mean, so at least whatever it is, it's a done deal. You would not have said that had there not been a done deal.
Right.
At this point. So
exactly.
Here's hoping it's really good news, and not just minor good news.
Yeah. Exactly.
So what we're going to do for this is offer just some thoughts on stuff. We observed. What was it? An hour and a half worth of Cohh running around, experiencing the Evaluator build.
Yeah. The whole stream was 2 hours, so it was probably closer to like an hour and 45 minutes, because he jumped right into it. Like, there was no like dancing around and introducing people and talking and BSing. It was like, boom, we're here we are. This is the game.
And he's done this before. It's just like the new iteration, right? It's like, hey, here's the update, and so it's not the first time he's done that.
But his reaction was amazing. Like, he was just like, "Wow, this feels different. This feels like a complete game." Like, he was really
completely different game. Yes.
Yeah, like he was. And that's cool, because it, like, as an outsider looking in, like, graphically it looked different. But I didn't see that difference in the feel of the game. So I guess that's something you only get if you're playing the game and can understand that. But that's really cool that he was so excited about it.
I don't know, that lighting looked great.
Oh, lighting and the particle effects and like all that stuff is like fantastic.
And I think what we're going to do is just kind of move through all of the stuff that you would do to evaluate a game, right? If we're talking about the environments, if we're talking about character models, we have a plan to kind of do all of this. The movement, what we observed of abilities, story and quests, we wanted to offer for this episode our impressions that we gleaned, and we haven't been able to do this before, where it's been breaking news, because we've just been catching up on what's been old news to everyone else. But here we get to offer our first impressions of this, and so that's what we're going to do. First one, I think let's touch on environments. Anything jump out at you, Mox, about environments?
Besides the stuff that we've already mentioned, the particle effects in that crystal cave was amazing. Just in general, the lighting, the way that the torches worked. For the most part, the torches worked okay. We'll talk a little bit later about some issues with the torches, and a little bit of we may have a fire safety PSA to give to the kids that listen.
They play the game and then they attempt to mine with a torch in their offhand.
Exactly. So,
just to say.
So the all in all, like the environment looks really cool. The flickering of the flames, like when they were near a fire, like you heard it flickering, like the sounds were cool. All that stuff was just top notch. I think they did a good job in whatever they've done to update that stuff.
Yes, absolutely. And again, has to be mentioned, pre-alpha. This is all in development. So we're very much taking a snapshot of a moving target, and there's more coming. So I think I can agree. The sound particularly was really cool. The whispers in the place, and the way that the crackling of the fire as you went by it, that was really cool. I mean, I wouldn't expect that not to be in any game that I came across. But there was like a hushed whisper that makes it sound like a training academy. Like you're not supposed to be talking very loud in here. I felt that. I felt that there watching. Sound really, to me, affects. The one thing about sound that was a little bit lacking, I felt, was the lack of music. Although there were sections where you went into it and then music would start because it's ambient and adds to the mood of that part. Maybe that's coming.
No, they mentioned that the music was working in a previous build, but for whatever reason it was not working in the build that they were running yesterday. So there was some glitch with that. So I would expect music to be prevalent in it, especially because apparently Joppa is composing it.
Right.
Who knew?
Yeah,
I didn't know.
That guy must be able to play some piano. And you know what? That's awesome. Because it makes things a little cheaper for their team. Let's be honest. You know,
Maybe.
like you don't have to
Who
outsource
knows?
all
I don't
of
know
that.
what his contract is. Maybe he gets a $5 for every song. You never know.
There you go. Yeah, that's actually true. Hey, that's a good point. But at the same time, though, then his vision for the music is also something. A lot of times, if you say, "Hey, here's our mood, here's what we're going for, Mr. Music Man, can you come up with something that will give us this mood and this?" And what he comes up with, you may be able to tweak a little bit, but you don't really have control over that.
No.
Whereas if you are the guy, that's entirely within your control, and I think that's very cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
definitely the sound particles again. We're touching on that. That ambience of that blue cave, and you go into it, and all those crystals were in there.
Right. So
Just
let's talk about the negatives of that castle.
Okay.
You commented that it felt very boxy.
It did. Yes, it did feel very boxy. Okay, so in the cave, it went away completely. Which shows me that they have the capability to do angles and you know where it looks like a 90-degree angle on a wall has been eroded or broken away, or it's now ruins or something. So they can do that in the castle. And what is it, Diviari Castle?
Yeah, Diviari.
Whatever they were calling it. I don't think anybody knows what it's going to be, how to pronounce that. It felt very 90 degrees, a lot of right angles, right turns, very, very well kept. Okay, in a well-maintained place where people are living and training and you know, working on things, I can expect that. But it felt like it needed to be a little more organic. I was happy when he came up to a door that had the arch across the door.
Right.
There's a lack of architecture, I think, in the interior of that castle.
It felt very institutional.
Yeah,
Like
you know what I'm saying.
Walking into a hospital or a school that has, you know, like a grade school that has like a, you know, just a straight hallway and rectangle rooms to the left and right.
But maybe that's okay for a training academy. You know, I want to be appropriate with it. You know, like when you're out in jungles, there better be no right angles anywhere. You know, but so maybe it's okay that it's that way in an academy.
Right. Or a castle. I mean, I don't know. I've never been to a castle, so I couldn't really speak to that.
Maybe everything is right angles.
I know there's supposed to be tapestries.
Yes.
So it's my little Indiana Jones reference there.
Yeah, tapestries.
Yeah,
no, that's true. I mean, so there was a tapestry. We did see one.
Yeah.
And I remember when you and I were looking at it, I was like, that's hanging awful straight. Just like, it was like a tile, you know, where it's like, boom, here it is. And a tapestry hangs more naturally. There's wrinkles in the fabric. It hangs, you know, if there's even a slight breeze in there, it may move a little bit. And certainly nobody wants straight walls of stone. You do something to decorate them. And there were a lot of shelves, I recall. There's a lot of furniture that they did very well in.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, I think there's still more. Hopefully more coming. There's more of a vision that I'm going to be looking for, I think, with regard to environments.
Yeah.
But that Crystal Cave, I mean, come on.
I agree. I concur, man. That
was
Crystal
very
Cave
cool.
was the bomb.
It was deep, like you couldn't perceive the edges of it. I like vastness, and that pushes a computer. You know, incidentally, this is something I need to make mention. We don't actually have it in our notes. One of the questions was, what is the system specs for this? Of course, they don't know, but it's an MMO, so they're developing it so that the vast majority of people can use it.
Right.
Was it Ben who had remarked that he's playing it fairly comfortably, or like on a GTX 970 or something?
I listened very carefully to that. He said he has played it on a system that's that low. I would actually be shocked if his home system had a 790.
Absolutely.
So I think it was
and
more
maybe
they probably tested it on
they
a
have
lower
a test
end
box.
system. Yeah.
Yeah, and the next question would have been, well, what was your frame rate?
Yeah.
Nobody asked that. If it's 3 frames per second, I don't think that's playable.
Right.
I've done that in MMOs, by the way. 4 frames a second, and I've survived on that for like 3 years.
Yeah, no.
Dedication, let me tell you. So yeah, I mean, like the environments, I think we're doing good. Character models is the next one. What is your first impressions of what you saw as far as character models go?
I love the character models, like, overall. I thought there was some really cool, diversity to them in what we saw. Now, I understand they're still working on all the races, so we were limited as far as, like, really what we could see, racially speaking. But we saw different heights, we saw different builds, we saw, like, there's a lot of cool things as far as the character models were concerned. And we had that canine lycanthropy kind of guy.
Its name was Rash Zha. Zha, however you pronounce that. So yeah, there was, and I was actually pleasantly surprised to see that. I didn't expect that, given that I know it's so complicated to do, like the reverse, knee, the inverted knee and the leg,
the reticulated
kind of
leg
a thing.
Or whatever. Yeah,
character models are so different. But to see something else like that, just even if it's just a demo of, hey, here's a little something,
right?
That was good. It was good to see that in there. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And to see that they were speaking a different language that you couldn't understand in a conversation where the NPC could understand them. They were telling some kind of joke. It was actually really funny, and the NPC laughed, and it was a neat little thing that was in there. So
and then he was missing half the conversation.
Right. Exactly.
He couldn't understand the other side of it, so it wasn't funny to him.
It would be interesting to know if you can learn those languages. Like, that was a thing in EverQuest. Like, you could learn Elven and Dwarven and all those languages. So it'll be interesting to see if learning languages is going to be a thing.
Yes. I'll tell you what I enjoyed seeing was the stitching in his jacket. I know that's a detail, but to me that's cool.
Right.
Is that you can see, hey, this is kind of like some kind of a leather patchwork type of thing. I like seeing things like that because it's new. There's not that much patchwork leather I've seen in other MMOs.
Right.
It's rare. So very cool there. One thing I think we both noted that's worth bringing up is the shininess of certain textures. There's a lot of shine in this. There's a lot of, and maybe it's something that they haven't quite figured out with regard to lighting. You know what I'm saying? Like, if a texture reflects too much light, you get kind of like a watery or maybe a metallic sheen on a texture.
Right.
Tell me about what. There was one thing I know you mentioned.
I'll let you mention it. It looks like Ken, like a Ken doll, like his hair. Now, I was reminded today by a friend that it is pre-alpha. That may be something that is going to go in later. Like, their priority is getting now game systems down, getting game, and so the texture of the hair may be a placeholder.
Yes. Yeah. Cosmetics is usually, and I would say, probably very reasonably one of the last things that you're working on. You just make sure you're there so that you can pop a better texture in.
Right.
But just getting something to demonstrate it and that makes a working system work for now. That's
but you can't wait so long that you have to then be concerned about weird clipping of, like, long hair and things like that with armor and helmets and all that sort of deal.
Well, here I am as an investor, right? And I'm looking through this thing, and this is your build of this game to show off how cool it's going to be to investors.
Right.
And one of my questions is not going to be very different to one of my questions, right? I'm asking a question right now. Why was his hair shiny?
Right.
Right? I think an investor's going to ask a question. Now, you can say, oh, don't worry about that. This is just to show you the systems, etc. But there's a better texture coming.
Right.
Okay.
And maybe as a developer, you can say, look, here's where we were 6 months ago with the hair. Here's where we are now. This is what we're shooting for, and show them some concept art, and say we're progressing towards this, and that may be fine. But that's just, again, these are just our initial impressions about what we saw.
Right.
I would say that the hair is not done, and hopefully they do take a look at the reflectivity. Is that a word?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's just say the sheen.
Yeah.
You have too much body. You can have sometimes too much body and bounce. Sometimes you can have too much sheen.
Too much sheen.
On your hair, yes. If it glows, have to polish it.
So going on to equipment, though,
yes.
I think you mentioned that you found glyphs, which will protect you in the extreme environments in Terminus. We'd mentioned that in a previous episode where the environment is something you have to overcome. So as part of this demo, he obtained a glyph, which would help him against poison. And he was able to equip that and mitigate some of that poison damage In addition, there is also a natural acclimation to the environments over time, which was discussed. And so you spend enough time in an environment, you're going to build up some natural immunities to it that will then fade when you leave that environment.
Mm-hmm. You don't get it forever.
Right, you don't get it forever, but you get it while you're there. So you can, go in protecting yourself. You probably gain more, and then you become more effective. And whatever limitations are imposed by that lack of acclimation should mitigate over time, and that's cool.
Yes.
So he got some equipment dropped as loot from Mox, which was cool to see that he had like a dagger dropped and some armor dropped and things like that of various qualities. The one thing that they do not have, and from what I understood, they're not going to have any way to like where you hover over your the new dagger and you see your current dagger stats side by side with it.
Oh, comparative tooltips.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Where you enable compare. Usually, is an option. At least where I've seen, you can turn it on.
Exactly.
And when you hover over something, you see the stat differences.
Cohh asked, can I do this? And they said no. Like just flat no. Like you can't.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if it's you can't now or you won't ever be able to, but as of now, no comparative tooltips for equipment.
Yes.
Which is, again, I think that's a small miss. It's not game breaking, but it's a small miss.
Yeah. So I would approach that with the same attitude I have to Group Finder, right? That we discussed an episode or two ago. It's nice to have. It's certainly very helpful, but I don't think it's going to be a game break if you don't. Right. There was a time where we survived without comparative tooltips. Just a heads up,
Right.
Once I got it, though, you become very dependent on it. It's like the difference between washing the dishes with your hand, then you get a dishwasher, then you start to use that, and then one day when you have to go back to hand washing your dishes, it's not nearly as fun as you remember it being.
Right. I was just about to say, there's a time when people survive without running water, but
right.
That's a little bit more severe.
That makes hand washing the dishes a lot tougher. Let me tell you, you have to use
bringing down your dishes down to the river and beating them against a rock is not a very good idea.
No, it's not. Let me tell you. Yeah.
All right.
All right, Mox. Let's talk about movement. Tell me, sir, fire safety. And what are the?
I was gonna wait to get to that. I was gonna mention that the movement still seems stiff in comparison to other games we see out there. Now, again, animations may come in later that are better, and these may very well be placeholders. I don't know if, again, small studio, maybe they don't have the budget for fantastic motion capture. Yeah. But. The combat seemed stiff, and just in general, the running around seemed okay. Like, I was okay with the running around, but the climbing still, I did not like the climbing interface.
Yeah, you demonstrated it. It's very, it's very mechanical.
Yeah. He did that cool jump across the gap and grab the wall. That was neat. That is doable. I just wanted to look better, and maybe I'm getting spoiled by games that are in different engines and like Assassin's Creed that make that look just so natural, just like scaling a wall looks like nothing.
Yeah. But I don't know how you fix that. You know what I'm saying? Like, what you do is you build the character model, and then you build a wireframe inside it.
Right.
Right. And then you make the wireframe do certain things, and because the character model is superimposed over the top of it, the character model does it. Well, how do you better animate that? That's what I want to know. Is there something that can be learned maybe from? And I kind of got my hand slapped fairly in a previous episode where I was talking about mocap, right? Motion capture. This is not motion capture. This is animated, and I need to make sure I'm communicating properly on that. It is animated, but is there something that can be learned from motion capture movements that may be helpful in that, in the stiffness and the motion of things?
Yeah. But I still, again, I don't think that's a game breaker for me, but I think some people would find it to be a game breaker. Like, they do not want to play a game that has that kind of stiff movement, going on.
Yes, and I think especially because we're always playing our games in context. What I've been playing lately has built, and that's very much what these games are all up against. It's the expectations of the player base. So
Right.
if I've been playing other more movement-y games, and then I come to this, and this thing just seems stiff, well, okay. But that's the challenge, right? Is that you are developing a game knowing that other games are out there, and that they're going to be competing with you, and they may look better on the movement.
Right.
How do you compete? I think that's a question that a studio has to ask.
Right.
So, please, I'm dying for you to tell me what you thought of the torch movement. I want you to say it.
You guys swinging the torch around like it's I don't know, like it's a chicken leg or something. I just don't know.
I was worried that he was going to catch his hair, his oily hair on fire.
Hit him right, his shiny hair is going to catch on fire because it's plastic and plastic burns. Yeah, it's like. Again, referring back to a game that handles torches well is Assassin's Creed. Like, when your character needs to interact with something, the torch gets put into a wall, gets put under, wedged into a shelf.
And then you move a thing, and then you pick it back up when you're done. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So, using a torch, great idea. Like, limit that person to needing their light. Like, that's a cool thing. But
or like even in Jedi Fallen Order, right? In that game, you have to use your lightsaber to light your way in the darkness. Right. But there's a way that you hold it out in front of you.
Right.
And kind of use it when you need to, and then
carefully.
Right. Yeah. It's not right here. You're gonna burn your head off.
Exactly.
You're gonna burn your eye out. So, yeah. I mean, it's like, to me, it's like if you put it in your offhand, I think it may behoove the character animator to animate things. And this, I know, it's probably a ton more work, right? Because you animate the offhand to be able to swing things around like a club or whatever.
Right.
And if a torch looks like a club, you may just use whatever movement you have for a club. There you go.
Right.
But it's you are more careful with a torch, and this is why this jumped out at us. You hold it up, you hold it away from yourself, you hold it away from things that would burn.
Right.
You're just a lot more careful with it, and I certainly wouldn't mind, a gold or whatever that was that he was banging on with the torch in my hand. That's just, and maybe if he's going to now start swinging that thing, the torch disappears for that animation and then reappears when he's done.
Exactly.
I think you could do
don't need that lighting necessarily while you're doing that. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, recommendation.
Right. And something else we noticed about the like holding things in hand, seems like they were always holding their weapons. Like, I don't know if that just was like they didn't choose the option to stow their weapons or sheath them, but they seem to like always be carrying them around. Like, I'm walking around, keep holding my mace in my hand. No, you would have that hooked to your belt.
Yeah, and most other MMOs, you hit X, right, or whatever, and unsheath, right, or whatever you've got the key bound to, and then they hold it for a while, and then they go back to a non-combat stance. There's a cooldown, I think, on non-combat unsheathed weapon,
right,
or maybe a toggle, right, where you can sheath it or unsheath it, and maybe here's hoping that's what that is, and just was never toggled off.
Exactly, so. And again, we don't know, but it was just something we noticed.
Yes, absolutely.
So, you noticed something in regards to how Cohh was interfacing with the game that made it a bit challenging to fully understand, like how moving your character around would work.
Right, yes. Yeah, I think that's more just a player style thing, but I wanted to make sure that wasn't the game.
Right.
And I think I'm a mouse looker, and so when I'm looking around the room, the camera has almost a bubble around me that that it can move anywhere within that bubble.
Right.
I think he is a and D type person, and so the character shifts, right, and you have the camera kind of behind him wherever he looks, and so you get some of that where it doesn't go to it doesn't look up, it doesn't look down, but it just kind of is moving in a in a panoply kind of. I'm using terrible words. I'm sorry. Like a two-dimensional kind of a thing. And so he was doing that. But I think when he got down in the crystal caves, he started to mouse look a little bit better, and that made me feel better.
Yeah.
I do know from having seen other Pantheon footage, I've seen people being able to look everywhere. So I think I put that to bed as a concern. I was like, okay, no, we're good. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that it's just a style thing on his part. So no big deal.
I would be surprised if that was not a thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Going back to the climbing, we got to actually see the endurance bar and got to see it like decreasing as he was climbing, and then he paused and the bar grew. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see like what the actual effect of a long climb is, because they made it sound like you have to build up your endurance in order to make these long climbs in these obscure places.
Well, Ben did explain it. I think it was Ben did explain it. You know, like, okay, so if you are actively climbing, you're expending endurance, and so your bar shrinks down. It also shrinks if you're just hanging there, but not as fast. But you have to make it to a ledge to rest in order to recoup that endurance.
Okay, because it seemed like he just stopped and it filled up. So maybe he was on a ledge and I didn't realize it.
There was. You're talking about when he was climbing up that ladder, there was a ledge that he made it to and then waited for a second and then was able to climb up the rest of the wall.
Gotcha. I missed that. All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so endurance as being I guess a trainable skill is going to be interesting to see, like, and how do you do that? Like, do you just, like, each time you climb, you have potential of getting a skill point increase, which gives you another couple points of endurance? Like, is that how it works? Or so I guess we'll find that out. It's cool to see stuff they've discussed in action.
Yes, and that's a new mechanic, and I'm happy to see MMOs doing new, novel things. I think that's fantastic, so happy to see. Let's talk about abilities for a second. I noticed, and there's not too much that we have to say about this, I don't think we got to see class abilities. He was a rogue, so he was able to go invisible, right? And I think he figured out, hey, I do more damage when I get behind someone.
Right.
We got to see him demonstrate using the mastery system by adding spending points to really beef up a skill. I think he did that before. Yeah. And he did that before he knew what he was doing.
Right.
And then realized, oh goodness, I only have a certain amount of these. And fair enough. I think there's probably a lot of people that are going to get caught with that, not knowing that before they get into it.
Right. They didn't mention if you're able to retrain those or if it's like a, once you invest it, you're done kind of deal.
I wanted him to ask that, and he didn't. Yeah. I was like, can I get a do-over on this? Do I get can I
especially because he was spending them without knowing what he was doing. Like, do you think it would be a logical question? But yeah. Can I
take these away, put them on a different skill? Sometimes, and there are games that have that kind of versatility. Like, it gets locked in when you go out into the world, but if you go back to town, now it's editable or something, so that you can come up with a build that works for an environment that you're going into.
Right. And sometimes with the cost. But it'd be nice to know if somewhere like Pantheon, where the environment matters so much, that you could swap out for, I need, more fire damage, so I want to, tweak my fire spells, or I need more, endurance, so I'm going to add in, like, my endurance buffing stuff and buff that up. So, yeah.
Or maybe it needs to be that way. Maybe it needs to be, once you've invested in that skill, you've trained that skill, now you've got that. Why would you untrain in it? Who untrains in something? Remember, this is a throwback to an older kind of MMO, an older spirited MMO. And I'm thinking about Diablo 2. That's not an MMO, but it's still an RPG, right? But once you click that button, that was that point spent. And you just had to deal with it, so I don't know. Stealth becomes detectable near a fire source.
I don't know if I like this. Like, it drops you out of stealth. Not that it becomes detectable. You actually lose your stealth. Like, I could accept, I think, if it became detectable. Like, you cast a shadow, or, kind of like,
or maybe if you were more detectable, right? If, like,
but
you
the fact
see
you
a
actually
distortion
lose your stealth is an issue. Like, if I'm a rogue, I don't want to have to constantly be worrying about how close to a torch do I go.
You are now.
I won't be a rogue.
It's coming.
Problem solved. Mox, no rogue.
Just avoid it. I don't know. Like, being a rogue is cool. Let me tell you, the rogue's always a cool class. But yeah, I mean, that is an interesting level aspect of difficulty,
right?
To something that I think, based on other games, again, we don't have this. We have this expectation from having played rogues in other games that what on earth? Why would I lose my stealth near some kind of a fire source? Now, is it a heat source? Is it a source of light? I didn't get clarification on that. That would have been helpful, but I suppose I will figure it out when I roll a rogue and get discovered.
And test it out, right? I would have to imagine. Can you imagine, like, if it's just a light source? Because then when you're outdoors, what are you going to do? If you're outdoors during the day, you can't play a rogue.
Right. Yeah, no kidding.
Like, that would be silly. Like, it has to be something having to do with the fire. And it'll be interesting, if we ever, when we get a chance to talk to devs, like, talk us through your thought process on this.
Yes.
Why does fire reveal stealth? Like, let's find that out.
Yeah, and we need to put that on the question list for sure, definitely.
Yeah.
Story and quests. Let's touch on this briefly.
Can we be brief with the amount of text that we saw yesterday?
I don't know. It certainly was not brief text.
I'm spoiled coming from SWTOR, that fully voiced MMO.
Yes.
Like, so I understand that my expectations are a little bit different, but and I'm okay with having text dialogue of quests and things of that nature.
A classically spirited MMO, everything way back in the day of Galaxies and EverQuest.
Right.
Text bubbles was how it happened, right? You interacted in text bubbles, and this has come back here, and that's fair.
Right.
However,
I didn't like it with the dialogue, though. That went on and on and on. Like, pages, and it was more a matter of balance for me than it was a matter of the amount of text. It was the NPC would talk in 3 to 4 paragraphs. Then his character would say, "That's interesting." And then,
right, one-liner.
And then you'd get another 3 paragraphs, and it'd say, "Tell me more." That just seems like like a one-sided conversation. That's not a conversation. That's you're being talked at.
Yes, and there's another dimension to this, and that's body language. Okay, so they would have a paragraph of what this character had said, this NPC, and then there would be, in square brackets, he looks you up and down suspiciously, right? And then continues the next line. But the characters, I've seen other MMOs, do something with the character so that at least he's got some of the body language. He's looking you up and down as he talks, right? But you still get the text bubbles, but some of that movement is there. The fact that they are relying entirely for text, I think that's... So again, who knows what's coming? But I think we also need to be fair to this game and to the studio. When you are struggling with the resources, or when you're working with a more limited, resources, you do what you have to do with less, and you've got to be fair to them that way. So sometimes it's just too cost inefficient to have your character animator, who's only one guy, and he's trying to work on the way the dragon moves now, right? How is he going to come back now in this one minor NPC that you're only going to ever speak to once in a dungeon?
And add some suspicious, eye glance or something that most people would probably miss anyway.
Right. And I've seen it happen in other games where they develop like a library of movements, where as the person's talking, they do this with their hand, right? Oh, I don't know, it's kind of strange.
Right.
And then you see that same movement all throughout the game where they've used it wherever. So they have a library. That's a step better, but it's still noticeable. And I don't know, maybe it's better to maybe I need to kick in some imagination. And as he eyes me up and down suspiciously like this, I'm, crazy. That's meaningful for me in an imagination way that there's more diversity at the end of the day that comes to me through the writing than comes to me through a set library of movements.
Right.
And it's okay. You know what I'm saying? So it's my expectations that I bring to this from other games. I think he just keeps coming up.
And speaking of set library of movements, can you show me how to fence and do a backflip and be actually effective?
Yes. It's becoming a pet peeve, and it was a pet peeve of mine when I played Knights of the Old Republic. Again, Star Wars everywhere, right? Knights of the Old Republic back in the day. Who does a sword move where you do a forward flip and hit them with your sword? Right. Who does that? No one in history has this. So they came up with this idea that you should be doing flips when you do it. You're going to hurt yourself.
Right.
Right? In all other fighting, it's all about firm footing. You make sure that your stance is proper, that it's wide-footed, one foot, forward and back, because you want to be sure-footed. You don't want to lose your footing. Doing flips now I understand that's more kind of like the monk, kind of the rogue type of high movement.
Right.
I get that, but a backflip just for a backflip, you're going to get yourself killed.
It hurts your immersion, right?
Yeah, well, it doesn't hurt my immersion. It doesn't hurt the immersion for me. It feels less it feels half-baked, I'll be honest. It feels like you didn't put much thought into, hey, what kind of movements would someone be doing when they're fighting with a sword?
Right.
There are other games, again, that I've played where they study that intensively before they mocap that or do whatever they have to do. And those games don't do backflips with a sword in your hand. You will kill yourself.
Right.
You know, they understand that. But you know,
although
it's an
I
MMO.
am thinking about the Yoda versus Sidious duel in the Senate. Didn't Yoda
Right.
do a heck of a lot of flipping?
Dude, Yoda versus Count Dooku.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So, I mean, you need the Force or something to save you from cutting your arm off, you know. My goodness, because that's what I would do. I'd immediately and irrevocably dismember myself. That would be the end of it for me. So, yeah, I mean, like, so, but again, that's a bit more, you know, it's another little pice to add to our
It's a
beef
minor deal, yeah. The final two things I think are definitely, you know, UI based, and they're again minor. When Cohh's character got poisoned or was in an area of poison, like 98% of his screen turned green.
Yes.
And, you know, which is a cool effect. Like, they have that in other games. Diablo has that and stuff. It's controllable in those games. Like, you can set, like, how much you want to see. So maybe it's a setting that he just had set way high and can be tuned back. If that's the default, you can't do anything about it. That's hopefully they kind of revisit that.
Yeah. It was overtuned to me. Like it. So I don't mind if it pops up on my screen. Oh, my goodness, I'm poisoned. Now I know it.
Yeah.
Right. It's better than a little debuff bar showing up there, and I have to notice that.
Then you keel over dead before you notice.
Oh, hey, my red bar, my health bar turned green. Okay, that's usually kind of like when it's green. Okay, I know. So, but where it's located on the UI, which is kind of a slight other beef I have, but that's not a big one right now. Usually, it's down close to your skills. You know, so everything's kind of within your view, your field of view.
And that might be movable.
And maybe it's movable, right? And maybe he dragged it up there, or it was there and you can drag it down. And that's true. But usually, like, your health bar goes green when you're poisoned, kind of a thing. There wasn't long duration, but that effect on the UI limited his field of view down way. And it hung there for a while before it went away. And that would be, that to me, that's overtuned. It needs to go away faster or not be quite so, prevalent. Maybe.
It should be like more transparent, like
more opaque. Probably.
And then lastly, as far as the UI is concerned, it did seem very blocky and gray. But I think Cohh even mentioned that it is obviously still in development, and so that's why it doesn't look pretty. And then there was one last thing that I'd like to touch on that we didn't put in our notes here. That whole encounter seemed very easy. Like, their whole, everything they did. Like, they were rarely at risk until the very, very end when they're, like, they were taking some what you would say is serious damage. And for a game that touts risk over reward, it seemed to be lacking that. So if this is what you're wanting to show investors, and you're it seems too simple for what you're actually saying you want your game to be.
Yes, if you're going to go into a dungeon and it's got to be tough, and it's got to be high risk for high reward, and if the whole thing is based around high risk. Now, if you're a single investor, you kind of want to, hey, here's your version of the game, go play it and tell us what you think.
Right.
If you're going to handhold an investor the way that they handheld him, right, the way that they worked, hey, Joppa and Mikhail showed up, and one was healing and one was tanking to give him the ability to DPS his way through this, and they could experience the group dynamic that way. There probably needed to be, and maybe it's different, right? If you've got another person along, you now have a crowd controller that you don't have there, and so you can spawn in another NPC that
play it at a lower level, because they were level 20, so maybe they play it then at level 12, and it's more challenging.
Yeah, but to me, I don't see, and it happened over and over and over in that demo, where the tank would pick him up, because Cohh was the DPS, he'd slip behind him and would be just kind of backstabbing him the whole time.
Right.
And then I think Joppa was healing, right? So Joppa would just heal Mikhail, who was the tank, just over and over again. And it was just so, okay, we kill this guy. Now we go, hey, now we kill this spider. Right. Now we go and we kill this. And to me, I mean, like, if you're wanting to demo especially since one of the core mechanics that I think is beautiful in this game is the idea of dispositions, right? That you've explained to us. The fact that this guy may run away and go bring his friends, or this guy decides he's going to all out attack you and just go crazy, right? A bad decision in the moment. And it's different, and there's like a plethora of different ways these NPCs might act. You don't get to see that when you're just one NPC at a time. So I think that needs to be demonstrated.
Absolutely.
As well.
So all in all, I think it was a great hour and 45 minutes of new gameplay footage. I enjoyed seeing all the new stuff, the new models, the quests, like all the little details, him picking up food and such that was laying around. He found a key that went to a room that he had previously was locked to him. So there's a lot of cool things in there. And I am, even though there were negatives to it, I think the positives outweigh the negatives.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, like, again, I always have to... what's my chief fallback is pre-alpha.
Pre-alpha, yep.
It's all in development. It's coming along. I'm sure that there's so much more that needs to be done in movement. So again, but fortunately, I know what I'm looking for as we move forward. I'm hoping to see some change in the movement, right? That the guy's not going to burn his hair off with a torch. That's been tweaked as we go forward. So again, you kind of take it with a grain of salt. It is what it is right now in a very early stage. No big deal. But it's good to see, and especially to compare it to where it's been just a year ago, right? Or 6 months ago, to see how far the game has come.
Absolutely. So, as with our last episode, we are going to skip the Comquest for this episode. We will be looking for a new one for the episode 12, so be on the outlook for that, and Comquest will return. Check us out on Facebook.com/Disparate Worlds, on Twitter @Disparate Worlds, and our website is disparateworlds.org. In addition, on our website and in the description to this video are a link to our Discord. Please join us there and discuss all things Pantheon and Ashes of Creation.
Yes, indeed. That will for certain be it for us this episode, guys. Thank you for watching so much. Drop a comment. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and that way you will not miss upcoming episodes. Take care of yourselves, and remember always to be immovable in your principles and irresistible in your passion.